I don't have a crystal ball. I wish I did. But you know what? It's kind of fun to play as if you did have a crystal ball. We're going to talk about the future of acting on this episode of Casting Actors Cast.
Welcome to Casting Actors Cast. It's the podcast for actors in the business of show. Here is your host, Jeffrey Dreisbach.
Well, hello and welcome to this episode of Casting Actors Cast. I'm your podiocaster, podcast video caster, Jeffrey Dreisbach. Welcome to this episode. So if you're new, if you're an actor, if you're looking to become an actor, if you're in class, welcome. You're in the right spot. And today's episode, we're going to talk about the future of acting. What does that entail? And hopefully we're going to have some fun talking about some of these futuristic concepts of what it means to be an actor 10, 20, 30 years from now. All that's coming up, but this is that moment in the podcast where I want to say thank you so very, very much for tuning in to Casting Actors Cast. We've been doing this for about a year and a half now, and it's been very, very exciting. We're hearing from folks from all over the world, and I couldn't be more grateful. Please consider going to castingactorscast.com. That's all one word, Casting Actors Cast, and you can get some freebies. You can put your name down on a content form, and that form will take you to a free downloadable PDF book called Conversation Pieces Out of the Studio, the Voiceover Workshop for Professional Actors. My free book that I'm giving to you. It's 100 pages and it's loaded full of really great thoughts and interesting advice on how to be a voiceover actor. In addition to that, if you're tuning in on any podcast provider, it would mean a tremendous amount to me if you would go ahead and do a like and subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, that would be great if you could like and subscribe. I'm really excited to tell you that we're over 17,000 downloads so far. And again, my gratitude. Finally, I just want to say that we are on Patreon. And if you feel like you want to give something back to the podcast, maybe it's helped you in some way, that part of the proceeds from Patreon will go to Actors Equity Association, Equity Fights AIDS. And that's a really great cause. In addition to that, I hope to get improved equipment and, maybe some better technology in order to make these podcasts even more effective. But the most important thing is that you're here and that it's now. And for that, I'm really, really happy. All right, so let's talk about the actor's future. What I mean by that is let's play around a little bit with imagined concepts that might be taking place for actors of the future. So if you're listening to this and maybe you're a younger student, maybe you're in high school or you're starting off in college, or maybe you're already acting and putting yourself out there as an actor, you might be thinking, gosh, what does the future hold for me? Because there's all kinds of speculation, and I thought we would break it down into three components today to talk about what might be out there for the future actor. Now, I also want to say that I am just making this up. Just based on my own experience, based on my experience as an actor and now a casting director, based on the technology that I'm seeing today and imagining what that could be like in the future, I think all of those are fair game for the future of what it is to be an actor. But I am not an authority of the future of acting. I can only speculate along with you, but my hope is that there may be a few concepts, there may be a few thoughts that I'm throwing your way that make you go, that's kind of an interesting idea. Maybe I should start thinking about that. That's my only hope, is that you would go ahead and consider some of these concepts that I am talking about. So we're going to divide it up into three groups. First is going to be the technology group. We're going to talk about all the new technological innovations, and we're going to project into the future a little bit about that. Second, I'd like to address technique and training. It's one thing to be in the future, but what does that mean for you learning about acting, learning the various techniques, and what kind of training might you need in the future? So we'll talk about that. And then finally, I want to talk about transformation, how I envision the future to be transformed based upon those first two elements, training and technology. So let's get started with that. You know, it's amazing that auditions, even now in our office at McCorkle Casting in New York, we are doing Skype auditions. We literally have a director sitting in California, and we're Skyping the actor who's auditioning in our studios at our offices. And it's kind of amazing. The actor is given direction from the producer or the director sitting in Los Angeles. And there's this kind of cool back and forth going on. In the meantime, we're also videoing the entire situation so that the director can go ahead and look at those tapes and make sure that the actor is doing those interesting adjustments. Now, kind of blows my mind a little bit, only because I'm of a certain age, and that was certainly nothing in our purview when I was an actor, but it certainly is almost an everyday occurrence now. Second of all, Skyping back and forth with actors who are out of town, auditioning actors that way, as I said, actors who are submitting their video audition to us. That's kind of a new and interesting thing, that I can literally send videos all the way to a director in another part of the world to evaluate the actor's talent. So that's kind of growing and really kind of amazing. And the future, I think, holds even some more interesting surprises. One of the things that I would like to just throw out there is how actors are probably eventually going to be getting used to the idea of hologram images, where you get a three-dimensional effect of the actor. Maybe there's a 5 or 6 camera setup that's giving you all kinds of different visual effects of that actor. And so that technology, I think, is kind of pretty much going to be around the corner fairly soon. In terms of theater, I think the future technology is already upon us in a lot of ways. I've been to many, many productions recently where the sets themselves are digitally reproduced. And I think it's becoming much more of a cinematographic theater event rather than just a passive audience member watching. I think that that kind of interaction that we're going to be seeing on theater is upon us now, and I am just amazed at how far this could potentially go. So it's going to be an interactive kind of scenario, and so that theater is going to take on a whole nother, I think, element of participation on the part of the audience. And so as that technology continues to go on out there, you can only imagine what I think is going to be happening with television. So not only the 3D effect, perhaps, or hologram effect, but with television sizes the way they're being, I envision an entire wall of television, and that you literally are seeing real life size of people doing the interacting on these various shows and programs. So it's not just watching the car chase, and of course that's going to be even made more exciting when you have it like in a 12 by 12 screen in front of you. But I also think, as far as acting is concerned, I think seeing actors in life-size interaction is going to be something that I think is probably going to be happening in our future. So let me know what you think. I'd love to hear your ideas on what you think the future is going to be as far as the technology is concerned. So, of course, there's also no doubt about what's happening with CGI. Literally, actors are acting in front of green screens, and they are not even meeting the other actors that they're doing scenes with. So I think that that is kind of surprising maybe to some of you, but it's growing exponentially. And as the technology gets better and better and better, just in terms of those visual elements, you just literally won't be able to tell the difference between two actors who are in the same scene being shot in that way versus an actor who is on one other side of the planet doing the scene and the other actor in New York or Los Angeles doing the other scene, and it being joined together. That's already happening. But I think more and more it's going to put a lot of this technology in the hands of people who don't necessarily have the gobs and gobs of money to be able to do this. I think this is going to becoming more common and every day as the technology grows. So that also means an element of what we're going to be seeing in terms of special effects, in terms of puppetry, especially as we talk about future elements that are going to be out there for us to have to act with. It's already clear that we have to do a lot of acting with puppets. In fact, I think that there should be a course on how to act with inanimate objects, because that clearly is something that today's actor needs to have as part of their skill set. Now, along with all these amazing new technologies that we're seeing, a concern that I would have, of course, is the exploitation of the actor. Taking a human being and manipulating it to the point where you can even recreate their emotional intentions, you can manipulate them. And my hope is, and this is only a hope, but my hope is that the human condition will remain intact, so that the most important stories that are being told are not necessarily because of special effects, but the most important stories being told still involve the human condition, what is going on with one human being and another human being. So I also think the future of technology is going to be involving a lot of social media, where I think we'll be seeing a lot of programming being done in very selective areas, like social media outposts, for lack of a better way to say that. For example, Facebook eventually might have its own interactive acting scenarios set up for actors that are recreating historical events, perhaps, or individual programming, which we know is happening now. A lot of actors are choosing to become producers and shoot their own movies. So that kind of original programming, I think, is going to only get better and increase over time. So that's one area that I think really is most exciting to me, is how this technology is going to explode to such a degree that the actor is going to be challenged, which brings me to the second part of this, of the three parts. The second part is the training. What the actor of the future is going to have to do in order to participate with this new technology. And so I have a couple of thoughts written down that I thought I would share with you. First of all, I think that the actor is going to have need to have some level of technical understanding. That it's not going to be enough just to work on your technique as an actor, but the more you understand technically how this particular scene or this particular story is being put together, that you are going to be in a much, much better place to deal with the effects of those technical issues. So that means that, of course, you have a cell phone and you can shoot your video on your cell phone now. But I'm talking about, as the technology increases, I believe it's going to be more and more important for the talent to be aware of how those technologies are affecting the acting work itself. So being really careful about paying attention to what is taking place in the future of technology. I know it's yet another thing that you're going to have to learn or have to embrace to some degree. But I think that the more you do that, the more comfortable you'll be. And that, as a result, will produce better work, in my view. Second, of course, obviously, I think the interactive classroom is going to be part and parcel of what's going to be happening for actors. Understandably, university settings that have these wonderful theater facilities, and I think, I just don't see that going away anytime soon. But I will tell you that being able to have access to very specific requirements as far as theater and acting technique is concerned is going to require that there be this interconnectivity with professionals in the industry and actors in training. Now, already you're seeing some of that, but I'm talking about more of a direct one-on-one exchange between actor, talent, and director, casting director, producers, people who are writing new scripts. New technologies are going to play a part in the convergence, good word, the convergence of those elements. And so the interactive classroom, which is already upon us, I think is going to take on even a more dramatic effect. For example, instead of just seeing my head, perhaps you would see my full body, and I could evaluate a scene with two people on a full, large scale, or at least scale to life scene, and be able to make adjustments and make creative suggestions for that actor a long distance. So being familiar with the technology is important, but also being aware that this could go really big. This could go really, really far as the actor in the profession is concerned. I also think that we're going to be seeing, as far as education and training for actors in the future, I think that there are going to be a lot more specialties involved. And by that, I mean very specific, nuanced training in very specific areas of acting. For example, I envision a future where actors are extremely well-trained and well-versed in classical work. In other words, past authors' work. And that you might see that specialty coming from individual actors. For example, now we have the specialty of an actor who's comfortable doing Shakespeare, for example. In the same way, I think the specialty area that exists now is only going to increase, where it could be strictly specialty in contemporary work, or perhaps specialty in comedy, or specialty in drama. And I'm not talking typecasting as much as I'm talking about acting styles. And perhaps in the future, we'll see some kind of evaluation or certification of actors in those particular areas. It's conceivable to me that actors will have to go through some kind of technical evaluation in order to receive some kind of certification in some of these areas. So if you're certified in Shakespeare, for example, or you're certified in contemporary American drama, or you're certified in classical theater or classical television, that those are maybe specific areas that are going to be more nuanced in its training and more specific in its training. Now, I hope that doesn't scare you at all. I just think that there are going to be additional filters put on in the future so that actors will have to continue to maintain their training and be comfortable in each of these areas in order to be hired to perform in these areas. So I see that becoming more and more specific. Also, I think that as far as teaching and training is concerned, I think the future holds a lot of really interesting, perhaps even surreal experiences where, your head could explode with the concepts that you might be thinking about in terms of what the future is going to be holding for actors. Which brings me to my third of the three parts here, and that is what I call transformation. And what I mean by that is, let's talk about theater first, and what I call environmental theater. Well, already you might be experienced or know about plays or taking place in houses where you go from room to room, or a murder mystery, or My Big Fat Greek Ugly Jewish Wedding, those kinds of things where it's an interactive, I know I made that up, is that weird? But there are those kind of interactive environmental things. My prediction of the future is that we're going to be seeing more and more of those. I think theater is definitely not dead. And I promise you, I don't believe that it is going to be dead for a long, long time for this very reason. I still think that there will be an increasing, ever-expanding need for human beings to have contact with other human beings. And I think the theater is one of those places that can really make that kind of significant impact on the social experiment that we are all in. Does that make sense? So I don't necessarily see us in these huge sit-down theater situations. My view is that I think theaters themselves are going to be smaller and smaller and become more and more specific to specific areas of specific interests. And I think authors are going to be addressing those specific interests with specific pieces of either entertainment or socially relevant or moving or, whatever adjective you want to choose. So I think that theater is going to be the cornerstone of human interaction as we continue this incredible technological explosion. So I also think that there will be an amazing change in the future as far as sensory input is concerned. Now, I know you might laugh at this, but I think that there is probably in our future an experience where you would put on your goggles or you would put on your headset that is connected to areas of your brain where you can have an experience, whether it be storytelling or whether it be some kind of human drama or a story being told completely digitally that way, where you're not even necessarily seeing the actor or the situation in front of you, but it's being conjured in your brain. I think that's a real possibility. Now, that's still going to require actors. But that's what I was talking about earlier, when the actor has to be familiar enough with this new technology to kind of figure out how it's going to work. Think what's happening now with video games. In interactive video games, I mean, it's just amazing how that technology has grown and expanded tenfold. But now put a human actor in the equation. I think that is what we're going to be seeing a lot of as we talk about the transformative experience. The sensory input experience might also involve smelling. It's not only visual, but our hearing, but it also might be smelling. Why not put ourselves into a confined area where we can experience a lot more physical connection to what's taking place in front of us or in our minds, so that we might experience what an explosion feels like. We might actually have the experience of what it's like to be in a submarine, for example. Whatever story you can conjure up, perhaps there are going to be some kind of inputs that are going to make an effect on the way you experience these stories. So I also think in the future we're going to see something really kind of interesting, and that is the ultra-active television experience. And what I mean by that is that you've got your big screen, right? But let's say you're in an apartment scene with two people and you say, gosh, I really like that lamp, where you could literally point to that lamp and you could order that lamp because you like it. You could be watching a scene where you're in the kitchen and the person is making a meal. You could find out a little more information about that meal. What is she actually making in this scene? Oh, she's making her own pasta. Well, what recipe is that? So I think that there's going to be a connectivity of all of what we're experiencing, and we can find out even more. Obviously, it's going to be a way for advertisers to do that kind of cross-promotion. Already that's there. But now let's take it a step further. That anything that you're experiencing in front of you, you can gain or get more information from, should you choose to do so. You could literally order that same apartment furniture that you're seeing on a television show immediately. Wow. Crazy, huh? I think that the explosion in content creation that we're experiencing now, the artificial intelligence, all of those things are going to combine. But here's the good news that I want to leave you with. And that is, in my view, I think it's still going to be about human relationships. I still think it's going to be about the human condition in unusual, challenging, or stressed circumstances. And I think that's good news for actors as we continue to explore ways in which we can develop our acting technique to make a significant impact along with this new technology. I'm Jeffrey Dreisbach. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening to Casting Actors Cast.
Casting Actors Cast is made possible with your support just by listening. Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.